Okay, we have one wire left, and then we are totally rid of the voltage regulator. You have the brown wire left, and that still runs all the way back to the wiring harness connector. And there he is right there. So what we're going to do is remove it. If you can notice, two empty holes. That's where the solid black and the black with the white stripe wire were. And those were for the ammeter. As I said, we're running voltmeter. We don't need that. We started off with 10 pins. We're down to 8. Okay, we've just removed the solid black wire out of the fuse box connection terminal. And when you trace that wire back, it's going to lead you to the printed circuit connector, which is what I have in my hand. And it is in location number 12 on the printed circuit connector. So now things are starting to make a little more sense, I'm sure, because you have the ammeter, which is a gauge, connecting into this. And this is what gave power to that printed circuit to the gauges on the other side of the printed circuit. Next, we're going to remove the black with white stripe wire, and that's going to be the other wire for the ammeter. And that is in location number 1 on this printed circuit connector. I will say this, removing these pins from inside the wiring harness is a bit of a challenge. It's actually like trying to pull a tooth. You have to be careful because they do damage easily. You can break them. So what I do is I just take my needle nose pliers and get down on there, and I just start pushing down on it and wiggling it side to side and back and forth. This is one that has been removed, and once you get it past those little teeth, it'll come right out. But getting it to free itself is a bit of a challenge, and I would suggest to just use caution when removing these pins from inside the wiring harness. So now that you've removed pins from the wiring harness connector, you're going to also have to remove the pins from the fuse box. And it's going to be pretty easy to do. This comes apart. It does come apart. It's kind of snapped together. And when you get it apart, you can see inside, that's the terminals. That's all your terminals. It's pretty antiquated. And frankly, I like the antiquated version of things because it's simple to work on. It's simple to work with. But then on the other side, where your wiring harness connects, you have the wires and the ones that you're going to be needing to remove. So on the wiring harness, we've already removed the 2 wires, the black, solid black, and then the black with the white stripe for the ammeter. Then we just removed the brown wire that came from the voltage regulator. And you just have to come over here to this and correlate those wires with where they're at in this position. Okay, so at this point in time, I want to backtrack just one step. And there was a wire that was coming out of the short side of the wiring harness. And I mentioned it had this little clip on it, this little harness connector, and I didn't know what it went to. So I did some investigating, and this is the short side that we were working with. We've already removed what we don't need from here. But come to find out, it's connected to this side of the fuse box. And right there where you see it says TCS. And so you flip this over, and it's that little thin, this one here, the brown and white wire. Brown and white wire, those are ignition wires, right? So this is where it plugged into. I can get this out of the way. You connect it right here. And so when you flip that over, you see that wiggling? That accessory port. But then also you see where the fuse clip holder is wiggling. So it's attached to there. So it's sharing this circuit. So it's getting power, right, from the ignition. Comes across and it's giving it power. So on this side, that little brown and white wire is right here. So it makes a loop. See, it's right there, and then it's going there. So from there to here is where it makes the connection through the fuse box to where you're going to connect the wiring harness, which is this piece and the top one, the very top spade there. That top spade on the right hand upper side is that brown wire that had that little connection on it that I didn't know what it was. Come to find out, I did a little investigating. I could not find anything about it, and I'm like, what is this? TCS. There was no traction control or anything like that in 72. So then I type it in and I can't find anything about it. I knew that the brown and white stripe wire was an ignition wire, so I started looking in ignition stuff and nothing. Finally, I put electronic solenoid for transmission on 1972 Chevrolet pickup truck. Nothing came up, but then it showed the solenoid on the side of the carburetor. And then it hit me. It's like, oh, that's the throttle control, the throttle speed, the throttle up. See, there wasn't a manual choke cable. So on the Rochester carburetor, it had a solenoid on the side, and it would speed up the throttle in cold starts, and when you start the truck, it's warming up. And that's what that is. So now I feel 100% good knowing that I can remove this without any implications of anything bad happening. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever run into that. And it's weird because I've had 6 GMC and Chevy 67 through 72 pickup trucks, and this is the first time I've ever had this on there. I guess I started reading about the solenoid, and a lot of people removed it, so I guess, you know, they cut it off or whatever. But anyhow, that's what that is. So now I'm confident in removing it. So we're just gonna go through the process like we've been doing. Go into the circuit board or the wiring harness, then go to the fuse box and remove the 2 wires. Don't need them. So with that mystery solved, I put some heat shrinking tube over it, melted it down to cover up the connection. That way, in the event that a wire chafes or whatnot and scrapes, and it won't be live and then create an issue inside there. Now, while we're in here, the next wire that we're going to want to remove from a connection is this yellow wire. This yellow wire right there on this terminal is for the wiper, the windshield wiper motor. And you see right there, it says plainly, wiper. So you simply follow the connection all the way around everything until you come up to the wiper switch. And remember the little trick I just showed you about how to get the wires out of there. And for this, we're going to need it to be wired to the new wiper motor that's going to come with a switch. So I'm simply going to cut it right here and get rid of this extra pigtail. Then I'm going to take my blue painter's tape and my Sharpie and mark on it wiper power. I know what it's for, but I still like to mark things, because when you get all this stuff strung out and then you wrap it in the coating, you don't want to hide a wire from yourself. I have a little tip that I'd like to share with you guys. When you're removing wires from the wiring harness, which is what we're doing now, and the various other clips and connections on GM vehicles, all you need is a thin bladed flathead screwdriver. And what you do, you have the connector, you go underneath the connector, and then you very gently push your screwdriver in, and then wiggle it one side to the other side, and then kind of pry down on the screwdriver, lightly pry down on it. And what you're doing is you're depressing a clip that's on the back side of this connection. And then you take the screwdriver and add a pull right out of there. You add a push out from this side. If you were on the other side, you can pull it out. So let me get to the other side here. Get this wire pulled through for you guys. There it is. It was in that location. Now it's here in my hand. That little clip I'm talking about is on the underside. And you see how it's flattened? So I can take this little flathead screwdriver here and pry that back up. And that's how it would be inside the wiring harness. And with that clip raised up, it keeps the wire from falling out. So you notice if you try to tug on these, they don't come out because this clip is folded up and it's stopping them from coming out. So I'm going to reinstall it just for the sake of showing you. And it doesn't matter where I put it back in here because we're just doing a demonstration. You might have heard it kind of click. See, I'm pulling on it and it's not coming free. So once again, the trick to getting the connectors out of the connections, put the little thin bladed screwdriver in, turn it to the right, turn it to the left, kind of pry down on it gently, and it depresses that clip. Then see that? It just slides right out of there. There you go.